Hello, I'm Stephanie Lomeli, the podcast manager, and in today's podcast, we will be discussing how the staff and faculty at Bonita Vista High dealt with the internet crash and how they were forced to adapt to a week with no internet, as well as the struggles they face.
Bruce, Shannonbruce.
And how did the internet crash impact you?
It really didn't impact me. I was able to go pick up my paper rosters. I've already had my seating charts. It really didn't impact me in any negative ways because I just had to go pick up my paper rosters. And since I already have my seating charts on my podium, that was no problem. I started teaching in 1999 when there was no internet, so I just kind of reverted back to my old ways. If I had previous, have been absolutely fine without any internet because I would have just put my stuff up like I used to.
And how did you adapt to the internet not working?
Some things I did have to hotspot. I am very lucky because I have an unlimited data plan. So, for example, one of the movies I had to stream, I just used my data, and I was able to access my Google Drive through my personal hotspot. So that was no problem for me.
And do you think this was a good thing that there's a shortage and people are having to depend on the internet so much?
I think it's a nice little wake-up call. I think that technology, I would like little breaks. I think it's kind of a timeout, a little break, right?
Yeah, I agree.
I love that you agree with me, Stephanie. I think that we rely way too much on it, and I think it's unhealthy.
Anything else you want to add towards your opinion on internet and our dependency?
Well, I just think our society and our world's addicted to anything that's related to tech, and it's kind of nice to take a break.
My name is Jessica Vargas, and I teach Avid.
And how did the IT crash impact you and your teaching?
It surprised me at the very beginning, as I had plans in every one of my classes. So anything that I had planned for the first few days of the crash just completely paused everything, and I had to kind of scramble to figure out how to get that material covered. And then as it kept going, I had to think about the best ways to continue with teaching and continue with my plan, which meant no internet and no making copies, which was okay. Copies weren't a big deal, but no Google Classroom's kind of one of the bigger ones, and research, because a lot of my students research.
And how did you adapt to the crash?
I went back in my toolkit of the top pre-use of the internet, even a little bit before COVID, and just found a few activities that I could modify to work with my themes and my unit plans. And talked to a few teachers too. I actually opened up some books, figured out some books I could use, and did my best to think of team building activities. We even did something outdoors with one of my classes. Just having to figure out, adapt to same topics but different way of doing it.
And do you think there was a good thing of internet shortage, do you think it was mostly just a downside for your teaching?
Definitely just a downside. It also gets us teachers a little frustrated because, I don't want to call school, in that I mean not come to school at all, but it's just frustrating. I feel like teachers are expected to do a lot. There's a lot on our backs, and even when things like this happen, there's not a whole lot of talk about compensation or about, how we're going to fix this for next time. It's sort of an expectation that teachers are just going to figure it out, and we do, because we're in this job for students and we want to make sure you all are taken care of. But you definitely get a little bit frustrated, especially when you've been teaching as long as I have, and you kind of see some of the inequities compared to other jobs. I appreciate the support of the front staff, and admin has checked in on me, and there's the option for copies and all those things, but all in all, it just puts another brick on the weight that is public education.
Would you say there's a lot of dependency on the internet, for just all of your teachings, and that's where your main source of giving your assignments to your students is?
I would say that there's definitely a lot of dependence on technology. I will also say that I'm okay without it. It's just hard when it surprises you. It's hard when it surprises you, when you don't know when it's going to end, when you're going to get the internet back up. And Well, a little bit. Also, students are worried. Students are worried about grades. Students are worried about assignments. And so there's that extra level of stress that gets added to us as well.
Is there anything else you want to add, like your opinion towards the internet and the crashing?
I know nothing about it to really have an opinion other than I'm really glad we have a 4-day weekend coming up because I feel like we've all deserved it.
Nohemi Cuevas, and I am the attendance tech.
How did the IT crash impact you and your working?
I have not been able to input any of the absences, so like if parents are calling to excuse the absence, I'm just writing it down, but nothing's being updated. So everything is just piling up as we go. And then if I need to look up a student, I have to go through the binder with all these students in there.
How did you adapt to all this?
Well, we're not going to stress about it because there isn't much we can do. So, I got all the filing done. So we work with what we can, pretty much. And just know that later on we're going to have to play catch up.
Do you feel that this IT crash made you realize how dependent we are on the internet and how it's a really main factor for all your work?
Yes, it makes everything just run smoother and easier. And it doesn't, we can still find the information, but it just takes longer. So yeah, it does help to me.
Was it mostly a downside for you, or did you see any good things that came out of it?
I see it more as a downside because I can't do my job. I can't input attendance. I can't help parents if they want to know. Not even the students. They're coming in asking how many Saturday schools they need to go to. I'm like, I don't know. I can't tell you. So yeah, it is a down.
How long have you been working at Bonita Vista?
A week. So my first day, I show up and there's no internet.
Do you feel like that even sets you back even more?
No, because since we had a downtime, because there wasn't much to do, I was able to go over stuff with Mr. Kobian, independent studies, what the contract means, and it was kind of getting to know the system. Mm-hmm. So it was actually okay. Besides, later I'm gonna have a bunch of work.
Do you have anything you want to add?
No, I don't know. I'm trying not to stress about it.
My name is Romero.
And how did the IT crash impact you?
Tremendously. I can't even, my communication piece of communicating to the staff and students and parents is totally cut. So, my weekly show on Monday where I already taped, something, it hasn't been shown. And then when you talk about just the internet with Outlook, I can't even check my emails. So typically, on a regular day, I get anywhere between 50 and 100 emails a day. Mm-hmm. And so I can imagine either they're all stacking up somewhere or people are sending me questions or information thinking that I'm reading them and I haven't read anything. And so it brings anxiety to me because I always want to keep up with that, my emails and so forth, and my correspondence with staff and students and parents, but I can't. So it really stresses me out. Really stresses me out.
And how do you think you adapted to this?
It's a great question. You know what it is? Is now I find myself going out to the classrooms, talking to teachers, talking to students more, because I'm not stuck here, chained to my. So that's a good trick question, because really, if you think about it, it's kind of nice not having to spend your whole day doing that. I probably spend half my day on my computer doing things, but now that I don't, I spend half my day now being out, walking around school, talking to people. Yeah, one of my main purposes as a principal is I love interacting with people, and sometimes I do it on the computer on a regular basis. But now that that's completely not available, I'm out talking to people, walking around. So in a way, that was good, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so you don't have to depend so much on the internet. You can actually go in person to talk to people face to face. Do you think there was a good side to this internet crash, so you can go and interact face to face more?
In
a
weird way,
a downside?
It is, because it's freed up half my day, which is usually spent doing stuff in front of a computer, now going out talking to people. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, in a weird way, it's it kind of brings you back to what we used to do. When I started teaching 36 years ago, we had no internet. We had very little work we did on computers. Everything, even grades were done by hand in a book. I had a seating chart where I would write demerits down if a kid was acting up or what. But it was done so differently, and everything was done on paper and pencil or on the board, and students were not distracted with cell phones. We're still getting information on our cell phones, but the distraction was much less. And so I noticed that now the distraction is much less.
And do you have anything you want to add, like towards how you approach the IT crash, or just like your opinion towards it?
Yeah, I got an opinion about it, which I just thought of this now when you were talking. The staff here, because I think the hardest people hit are the teachers. Because you rely on the internet, you rely on these lesson plans that you create on your Google Docs and so forth, your Google Classroom, and now that that's not even a possibility, teachers are having to readjust tremendously. And I say this because my wife's a teacher. But the teachers here, of all the teachers here, I maybe have 2 people that complained to me on the very first day. But after that, they just figured it out and they were just working. So it kind of makes me appreciate the staff here. They just go with the flow and they figure it out. And that's kind of a nice thing to say about the staff, being able to do that.
Lorena Mata, counselor.
Jennifer Cordova, registrar.
And how did the IT crash impact you?
Definitely at first it was not having access to student information. That was the hardest part at first.
Yes, and adding on to that, the emails, because a good majority of my work comes from emails and voicemails, because that's all connected into the internet.
And how did you guys adapt to the IT crash and learn to move on from the internet and go to hard copy and go up to somebody face to face if you can't reach them online?
Doing exactly that. The district provided us just with student information so that we can know at least their classrooms, where they're at, so calling students out that way.
Right, so fortunately our IT person on site was able to give us backup information, so that way we could pull from kind of like a mock file or mock infinite campus to be able to try and locate some information. And when it was up and running for a short minute on Monday, was able to print what I needed for our senior diplomas.
And do you think there was any upside to this IT crash, or was it just a downside and it just affected you negatively, or do you think there was some positives?
I think a positive is just to remind ourselves of downloading hard copies and putting things like that. I think we get so reliant on technology that we kind of forgot what we used to come from. So it's a good reminder of what things that we need to back up our stuff and use different avenues.
Definitely a good reminder for all the reports that we run to keep them stored on our desktop and not just pulling an in-the-moment report. I think it's a little too soon to say if there's any other positives aside from that reminder.
Yeah.
And do you guys have anything you want to add towards your feelings towards the situation, the codependency that we have on the internet?
Being able to go with the flow. Trying just to take a minute and breathe and do what you can. Remind yourself, do what you can, and don't stress out too much about what you have control over.
Right, and being grateful for how quickly the district was at least able to get us our hotspots, and I'm sure every other school as well, so we had some type of internet.